I've known Cillian for 20 years. We've done, what, 6 movies with him? But never as the lead. But he has this extraordinary combination of empathy and sheer talent that allows him to open the hearts, the emotions of his character, the thoughts of his character. He lets us in, so he carries the audience with him on that journey.
The thing that really, I think, persuaded these incredible talents to work on this movie was the script. Chris wrote an absolutely brilliant script, and I think that was the, I think they all were fairly keen to work with him, but the script was the clincher.
All my experience with Chris has always been real sets, so you experience it as the characters would. It's a more visceral and honest response I think you get. That's how it was designed, that's what it was made for, and it's less like a movie and more like an experience.
Such an exhilarating character to even just read about. She was so exciting for that time, a sort of non-conformist and a bit wild, and forthright and not terribly warm, and it was just fun to play her. It really was. I mean, I think get ready to feel like your bones are going to shatter. It's like it's not what you think. It is Trojan horse. It's really a horror thriller. It's incredible.
Well, I mean, you're hearing what people are saying about the film. It literally is a cinematic experience. They're using the M word, masterpiece. That doesn't matter. I want to be entertained. I want to be thrilled. I want to be transported. And obviously, I mean, Chris Nolan and IMAX are kind of synonymous at this point. So do yourself a favor. Check it out big format.
What Chris gave, I think, all of us was an amazing script and an amazing direction. Like his notes are so precise and incisive and just spot on, and he just really makes everything better. So it's just a thrill to be in a movie with him, and I'm really glad Universal's putting it out. I've had a lot of success in my career with Universal. I love everybody over there, and I'm glad they're still putting big, serious movies in the theater. It's very cool. Yeah, I don't know if there's any director who does the kind of grand scope and scale along with like the great human drama the way Chris does. Like all of his movies work on really every level, and it's so hard to do that. I mean, the people who've been able to do that historically, like it's like Jim Cameron, Steven Spielberg, like it's like you can list them on one hand, and Chris is just at the height of his abilities right now, so it was very cool to get the call.
So Ernest Lawrence is one of the most kind of fascinating 20th century characters I knew nothing about. So when I got the role, I just went and read as many books as I could on him to kind of find out everything I could. The fact that he started the Rad Lab, the fact that he was the first person to kind of be in charge of this project, the fact that he was the first American physicist to win a Nobel Prize in his 30s. I mean, he was just a remarkable human being. In these books, these biographies, they said that he was sort of a mixture between Barnum and Bailey and like your typical physicist. Like he was very good at communicating with people in a way that most physicists aren't. They're sort of recalcitrant, dark, moody, kind of like Oppenheimer, but he was a much more Boolean character who was able to kind of bring people in. And I wanted to kind of give that vibe to him. And so I gained a bunch of weight. Cillian had the hard job losing a bunch of weight. I just got to eat whatever I wanted. We went out to dinner one time and he was so angry with me because I was just like, I'll have a dessert, I'll have a second dessert, and he was just, poor guy, starving himself. Most memorable moment. Honestly, all of them were memorable because all of the actors are so kind and so easygoing, and I've worked with a lot of really interesting actors over the years and a lot of big egos. And on this set, it just seemed like everybody's egos melted away. I don't know if they had them to begin with, because nobody brought that. And it was so pleasant to be on a set where everyone was there to do the same job. Everybody recognized that it took us all to get it done, and there's no grandstanding. It was incredible. Yeah, very, very cool. Very unlike Hollywood.
Biggest way in was just researching her, and of course there isn't much. However, there are pictures that were taken of her during that time by Robert, And to me, someone like him, for his head to be turned, has to be by someone who is truly magnetic and magical and pretty intelligent. So I understood the message just by the short research that I did, and also coming to a set that was already alive before I got there. It wasn't very hard for me to figure out like what I needed to do, and also just try and do right by the character and the real person. Movies are designed to be seen large, to be listened to large. Obviously, we've had our own habits in the last few years of watching things on smaller screens, but this movie was designed by one of the greats to be seen on a big scope, and you need to honor that. You need to honor the way that arts are being made.
Well, it's a real person. I play Niels Bohr, who was one of the fathers of sort of quantum physics, debated with Einstein, some really significant figure in 20th century physics. So there's lots to read about. He's Danish, and he had lots of interest in sport. He had an interesting life. He had 6 children. It was somebody whose science and whose life were very rich. So I was encouraged to go read it, and also to call on my own experiences of visiting Los Alamos, where his involvement in the story takes place. He's complex, he's sexy, you imagine him as being a man who could persuade people to do all sorts of things, including fund this extraordinary city in the desert that would produce a world-changing substance. And so Cillian can think with capacity to compel the audience. He has energy, he has vitality. It's a sublime performance from him.
We started on this was Chris had an idea to use the violin as Oppenheimer's sound and portrayal his story. So that was kind of like the only note that Chris gave me in the beginning. And it was a very different experience for me to work on this movie because I'd never done anything where the music is just telling one person's point of view. The music is coming from Oppenheimer's point of view. You're like, the audience is with him all the time. You're not judging him. You're feeling what he's feeling. So that's what the purpose of the music is in this one. Early on, one of the first things that I saw in the movie was that Chris's early experiments with the visual effects, how they made some of the incredible splitting of the atoms and how they made that move and how it looked like. I remember being in the IMAX theater and seeing those early experiments, and I was so taken back by how amazing it looked. And that's when I was in the theater, I was like, that's how I want the music to sound like. And that was the challenge, to make the music sound as cool and interesting like those images. The way that we start working is 3 months before we start shooting. And that's we're in pre-production, and we have meetings every week, and we start sitting down. I write about 10 minutes of music every week. We listen to it, and the way we kind of build the world together, and then he goes around shooting the movie, and he has my music in his headphones and listen to it. And so when he already had the first cut, there's already a bunch of my music in there, and his input. It's just a very incredible, creative collaboration that's always a back and forth,
Well, I think the movie is incredibly compelling, and it deals with a character who's one of the most meaningful characters, certainly in the 20th century, if not in history, and it's also one of the most important times and inventions that has changed the world for us, and it's something that needs to be seen and enjoyed, but also thought about.